So yeah, just for anybody who hasn't heard of yourselves before, I mean, just introduce yourself, and I mean, why did you set it up in the first place? Why did you feel the need to, set this up back in 2019?
Yeah. Um, well, my name's Mike Richard, and I run Talk About It Mate. And Talk About It Mate is a peer support organisation which we've been running about 3 years, but we've been a company for about a year now. And that a lot of that came out of my own struggles with mental health in my 20s, where I didn't really have anyone to turn to. I was diagnosed with depression at 18, and there wasn't really the support structures around then like there are today. And I don't know. I just felt like I didn't want other people to go through what I went through, especially in terms of the isolation and the lack of, true support and understanding, but from other people who might have been through similar things. So it started in Manchester a few years back. Just we'd meet for a drink or go to a coffee shop or go bowling, ping pong, and it kind of more of a social group than anything. But then it started to take shape, and we responded to what the kind of people in the group needed. And the beginning of 2000, end of 2019, start of this year, there was a real shift towards setting them up as more formal groups. As a trainee counsellor, I felt that I could start facilitating these based on a lot of the people who came in through the community. So obviously COVID changed the whole landscape of peer support, but at the same time made it accessible for a lot of people from a lot of different areas. So now we're trying to take our online success and kind of root it more in Salford, because I actually live in Salford, and I feel that it's one of the places that hasn't yet had that kind of growth in terms of mental health compared to other areas, in my opinion.
I mean, would you say that the lockdown has give, maybe men in particular a more opportunity to, reach out and get support, because perhaps they'd be more comfortable with a virtual meeting rather than having to, trek and go to an actual meeting in person.
Possibly, yeah. That's a really good point you've raised there. In that, like, we're always trying to think about how men can engage with mental health services, but often going to an event of guys, in a community centre or a place you've never been before can be quite daunting. I remember did it myself about 5 years ago when I lived in London, and it's that first step we need to talk about. Is it all right, so now we've raised awareness, we've addressed stigma, we know there's hashtags, it's okay to be okay, and it's okay to talk and things like that. But what's the next step? And yeah, possibly with some guys, with there being that detachment of not having to actually be in the room, it might be a good way to engage. But in terms of the emotional depth and intimacy you can get, you know, they might prefer it online because it keeps a distance, obviously, but being in person with other people who are sharing openly is massively beneficial, but each to their own. And there are a lot of people who I find in younger guys there might be a bit more social anxiety, whereas older guys, again, I'm generalizing, are used to socializing, going out to the pub, and then there's a real male culture to break down a little bit there and explore. But really, we're just providing the spaces and looking for people who want to use them. And with peer support, there's no experts, so we just ensure that there's no judgment and it's a safe space, and we just kind of facilitate the discussion so people can bring what they want to bring, really.
So talking about the events that you have planned in January, I mean, I saw on your social media that you kind of done maybe some trials of the events back in October, doing the walks and the social distance walks, but in January, I believe you're kind of planning to, do it a sort of a regular occurrence.
Yeah, Walk About It Mate is coming to Salford. Yeah, well, I live in Walkden, but we're going to start it in Monton as a really nice start point. And yes, we have trialled that out in October, and we were able to socially distance and do it in the groups. But I suppose we're starting grassroots up, so we're probably starting with really small numbers and see how the idea grows. But obviously, these things gain a bit of traction if you get funding, which I'm looking at the moment. But I'm making myself available to lead the walks every Friday, and it's about getting that movement and getting to the harder reach people. And so I'm in touch with different agencies in Salford, and a lot of it is like speaking to people like yourself and getting the word out there, because there are good things out there that are free and accessible. And I think a lot of the time I've been in that position where I think, oh, it's not for me, or it might not be at my level. But the good thing about this is we can adapt it. There's so many walks from where we're starting from at that point, that if there's a bigger group, we can divide it into two. If there are people who are older and less mobile, we can do a more gentle walk. If there are people who are younger and more vibrant, we can get about a bit. We can add a bit more difficulty in there. But really, we're waiting to respond to the needs of the people out there. And often, if it's all round health, physical, mental health, people like to be doing something when they're talking about things. So we're not going to probe them. It's just to kind of getting to know each other. And we already have a community, but this is like a community within a community almost. And we'll see how it will build from there. Yeah.
You also have a background in teaching, and I believe you're a primary school teacher. And I mean, on your website, you did focus on the importance of mental health education in schools. I mean, do you think that's an important area where the discussions need to begin with?
Yeah, I do. I think so. I think that there is a movement in that area. I know there's a commitment to putting more, young people's counsellors in there and stuff like that. But yeah, having been a primary school teacher for 10 years, and I think a lot of it is about role models, and also like modeling like an emotional language, emotional literacy, and just getting children to identify their feelings and say why they're feeling them could just be a really good start from the early years. So we build it up that there won't be any stigma about talking about feelings, because it's something we do regularly in school, and it can help us get in touch with different parts of our personality that is often, especially in men, is repressed from a very young age, isn't it? And it's okay to talk about your feelings. It's actually quite healthy, and if we have role models who go in there, and I think I'm quite well placed to do this going forward, being a primary school teacher and a trainee counsellor and someone who has lived experiences of mental health. And it's I think people are receptive. We just have to find a way to package it and get it through to them. So if we start young and build it up, that's one way, and then we do peer support. So we kind of got our fingers in a lot of pies, Ethan. Yeah.
If people don't want to go to the events and feel a bit timid about going to the events, you also do have a podcast. And I mean, I was looking, you haven't really done that many since June, but I hear that you're trying to relaunch the podcast in the new year, and probably another channel that people can engage with.
Yeah, we're making real steps to make it interactive. And yeah, the podcast has kind of gone through stages. It started off kind of me, myself, and my iPhone, and people from the community. I really believe in that ordinary, everyday people are actually extraordinary. I think we don't have to just hear celebrities talking about mental health for it to be relevant. In fact, it's more relevant if it's somebody you share a lot more in common with, in my opinion. And the second series was featuring people who run organisations like myself, and other great organisations across Greater Manchester and beyond. And the third series is myself and John, who run Talk About It Mate. We're going to model what happens in the men's sessions. So we've already done a podcast of the men's session, but we're going to take like a 10 steps. So we'll start in January, and our first topic will be loneliness. Now everybody can listen to that alongside it and reflect on their own, and then maybe take it to a group if they feel comfortable. And then we're kind of all going through this process together. So by week, say 9 and 10, we'll be talking about things like self-care and then the future. And I always feel it's less daunting to go through these things together. And we're doing it, we're being open and honest. And that might encourage other people. Everyone's at a different stage of their life, but ultimately it's a really powerful thing to start knowing yourself better, I think.
With it being the festive season and coming up to Christmas, I see the man himself, Santa Claus, give you a shout out the other day.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks a lot like my dad, actually, that guy. But no, it was that. Those are the moments that make it all worth it, because obviously our community is very scattered. So people all over Manchester, some people from down south. My dad lives in the Isle of Man, but that sense of community is really, and we've bonded over our book groups, our podcast groups, our peer support groups, and we had a really good night Friday. Everybody bringing it together, and communities can start from grassroots up, and that's what we've done. And I do believe in our format of our groups, and our values and our message can be taken. And so I really hope in 2021 that a lot of people find out what Talk About Your Mate is, and I hope we can train up more people to deliver what we kind of offer. Yeah.